moment here just to confirm once we are live. So stand by for the moments. All right, we are live once again. Aloha and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining in for another podcast here through Paradigm Shift Central. My name is Brendon and I'm joined here with some fellow awesome conscious media creators. We've got Kevin May and Kristen Spiral Soul Seed. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. And yeah, we're going to get right into things. And so since it's a little bit smaller of a group today, we may have some other members within our community joining a little bit later. Again, what we're going to do here, we're just going to kind of like introduce a little bit of the premise behind what the community is and the podcast and the intention. And for today, creating the opportunity in this space for the members who are tuned into this in the audience to be able to practice asking questions for us as conscious media creators. So maybe a question, maybe specifically for me, but it's also a chance for us to be able to practice responding to these questions collectively. So again, I've got a lot of experience as a conscious media creator. I've been doing this for over a decade. I'm not the only one. Kevin here, who has also been doing this for over a decade, and Kristen, who's also been walking her own path for quite some time. Again, we've got a lot of wisdom here. So again, the intention within the Paradigm Shift Central community, this is a community of conscious creators, of spiritual seekers. We do podcasts every week, as well as other events within the community hosted by different members. And yeah, this is a chance for us to really just be able to create space to be able to practice exploring these questions, to explore these answers, and to be able to help provide some inspiration and insight for the fellow conscious media creators and the aspiring conscious media creators. So Kristen, Kevin, thank you guys so much for tuning in, for being with us here tonight. We'll put their links in the info for this video. And again, for any of the members who happen to be tuned into this in the future as well, just go ahead and leave some, for the members who are tuned into this right now live, feel free to join into the broadcast through the Zoom at any point if you wish. And for those of you who are tuned in right now on any platform, go ahead and leave some comments, drop some 1111s in the chat. And yeah, for those of you on TikTok and Instagram, you guys are welcome to tune in on YouTube. Go ahead and click the link in the info of my profile to be able to jump over to YouTube. And go ahead and leave some questions. If you guys got some questions about being a conscious media creator for myself, for the other conscious media creators on this broadcast, go ahead and leave those questions in the chat and I'll take some notes down and we'll just kind of go through this together. In the meantime, what we'll do is just kind of take an opportunity to just kind of like ask some questions amongst each other and then also give us a chance to also be able to introduce ourselves as well. So yeah, what I'd love to be able to do, I'll just kind of like pass the talking stick. I don't even need to necessarily go first. I'd love to be able to just pass it over to Kristen or Kevin and give all of us a chance to just be able to share a little bit about just who we are in short form, but then also leaning into, you know, like why are we choosing to be conscious media creators? What does that mean to us? What does it mean from the heart? What does it mean from a higher conscious perspective, so to speak? So before we do that, again, all the links that you need for this video are in the info. All the links that you need for the community and everything are in the info for this video. We've got our Patreon. You guys can join there to get involved with our regular member events and also support the community. We've got our Discord server. You can also check out my link to be able to join me and fellow creators over on Ibble, which is another app where we're hosting exclusive events and discussions there. And again, all the links for the creators in this broadcast as well. So now the housekeeping is out of the way. Yeah, let's just get things going. And again, for those of you tuned in on YouTube, go ahead, leave some comments. For those of you on Instagram and TikTok, you guys are equally a part of this broadcast. Ask some questions, leave some comments in the chat. What would be a question you'd be curious to be able to receive some feedback on, whether you're a conscious media creator or whether you're just kind of curious to know a little bit more about the journey of a conscious media creator. So if you guys got some questions, go ahead and leave those into the chat as we get going. And in the meantime, let's just pass the talking stick around and get to know a little bit more about some of the creators that we have with us here to begin with. And yeah, we'll just kind of go with the flow and we'll even just kind of ask each other some questions as we go. So out of this broadcast, for those of you tuned in, we hope that this continues to nurture your heart and inspire your spirit on your journey as a conscious creator in whatever format that means to you. So yeah, Kevin or Kristen, who would like to go first, just in terms of sharing a little bit about, you know, just like who you are as a conscious creator, but then again, like why many years ago, many moons ago, did you choose to become a conscious media creator? Perhaps maybe there was a moment where you're just like, oh, like maybe I am, like, maybe you didn't even think of yourself as a conscious media creator. What is a conscious media creator? So we can kind of explore this a little bit together. As we go through these intros, we'll, again, just kind of collect some of the questions from the chat, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So just checking in here. Who would like to go first? Kevin can go first. Cool. All right, Kevin, thank you so much for being with us here tonight. And yeah, without further ado, I'm passing it over to you. So Kevin, go right ahead. Welcome, brother. Oh, double check mute. And
Okay.
we're good.
I had muted myself because I had the YouTube broadcast on for a minute. Anyways, happy Thursday, everyone. Really happy to be here. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States of Consciousness. And yeah, I've been creating YouTube videos since 2010. Well, for a while I was making like a video every day, but that eventually changed to like 3 videos a year. And I've gone through many different chapters and phases, but I have a lot of things, messages, tools, things that inspire me that I'm just so happy about them. I just want to share them. You know, it's like when you cook a dish that you really enjoy, it's kind of boring to just eat it by yourself all the time. You want to share it with other people and be like, yo, isn't this smoothie recipe amazing? Isn't this, gluten-free banana bread amazing? Like, you want to share it with people. And so that's really the passion that I've felt for a long time, just sharing what's helped me, what's inspiring me, and, passing that along. And I used to have this concept of like the great chain of inspiration. It's like everyone is just passing along the torch, like it's a relay race. They're like, this is what's inspiring me. And you pass to the next thing and it lights their fire. And then they pass it to somebody else and it lights their fire. And it's like, before you know it, we could have the whole world in a much more inspired state if we all, share our passions more and don't, do unhealthy things all the time and get bogged down by life. So anyways, I just try to put my little piece to the puzzle, my little link in the chain. So I make music. I've written a couple books. Everywhere I go, I share jokes. I'm actually a certified interfaith minister. So one of my nicknames is Kev the Rev. And I'm actually gonna marry 2 of my friends. And the crazy thing is, the only reason why I'm friends with these people is because they both work at Whole Foods, and I would go in every day and tell jokes to them. And eventually we became friends. And now I'm gonna like be their reverend at their wedding. So anywho, I like to share jokes everywhere I go. And yeah, I have a ton of passions. But yeah, I'm happy to be here and just vibe with the crew. I love everything that Brendon and Paradigm Shift Central does. And when I'm available, I love to tune in with this crew. So yeah, happy Thursday.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, and again, just kind of riffing here, and we'll pass it around, and Kristen can introduce yourself. I do like what you said there, where it's like this idea of kind of like it's a chain, it's a link of inspiration. I think with any of the work that we do as conscious media creators, I think it's important to be able to remind ourselves that it's never just about one person trying to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. It's about each person being able to show up in the little ways that we can, because the little ways continue to add up into the big ways. Like we got a incredibly large planet that we live on, but if one person can kind of like spark a light here, spark a light here, spark a light here, spark a light here, before you know it, the entire planet is lit up. And like you said, it really is this ripple effect. It's been interesting, from my journey as a conscious media creator. Obviously, I've had a lot of people kind of message me over the years, and some of the most meaningful messages that you receive as a conscious media creator are those messages where people reach out to you and they're just like, hey, like, you may not know this, but like your content has changed my life for whatever reason, simply by me being me, by me speaking my truth, by me in a lot of ways, like, I mean, the work that we're doing now, obviously, with the recent trends in spirituality kind of picking up, it's not as uncommon for us to be here talking about consciousness and shifts in consciousness and metaphysics and stuff like that. 10 years ago, and even before that, like this is kind of like an age where like we were few and far between, and so for people to kind of like happen to synchronistically land upon some creators who in many ways could be seen seen as being quite, brave to be kind of like speaking against kind of the status quo. And, people be like, oh, aren't you worried that people are going to like think you're weird just because you like talk about Sasquatch and stuff like that? I'm like, hell fucking no, man. Like Sasquatch is my brother. Sasquatch is my mother. And so, like being able to just kind of, for me, really embrace this weirdness, not just my own weirdness, but for me to have my own experience of how weird this reality is, and then to want to be able to create space where other people can gather in their own shared perspectives of this weirdness, so that they together can feel, and I don't even want to say less weird. It's not about like feeling less weird. If anything, we should be embracing the weirdness. Again, the word weird, actually in like its ancient roots, like literally refers to magic. It refers to kind of like destiny. It's one who can kind of like see the threads interconnecting all of the unfolding stories before us. So, for me, way back when, the work that I do as a YouTube creator and a space holder, it's just a part of what I do. But what I originally started doing, even before I officially kind of like got bigger on YouTube, was really just creating space through the paradigm shift circle discussions in person. And it was just these circle discussions where I was showing up. And even then, I was a conscious creator in sense of I was creating conscious space. I was creating space physically before I was even creating it digitally. And within these spaces, there was a space where I would just gather people around and be like, let's share our passions and our curiosity and our interests about the things that we don't commonly get a chance to be able to talk about. And the biggest thing, even, and I'll just say this, I'll pass over to Kristen, the biggest thing for me within the work that I do, obviously, I want to be able to show up to inspire people, but it kind of works through like levels of inspiration. You don't just purely just say like, hey, I'm here to inspire you. A part of it is the inspiration is almost something that naturally is going to produce through a person being able to tap into more of their ability to think for themselves, to speak their own voice, to be able to practice sharing their truth and their curiosity. So within the work that I was doing for Paradigm Shift way back in the day, I would say like explicitly, like this isn't about me telling you what to think. It's encouraging you to think for yourself. I got my own perspectives, and that's just it. I want to know your perspectives and her perspectives and his perspectives, and together maybe we can understand a little bit more about this mysterious universe that we live in. And that for me was such a driving element. It was like this unrelenting curiosity to know that from my own experience, I didn't need anyone else to tell me. I already knew through my own experience, through, like psychedelics and UFO experiences and dreams and stuff. I'm like, this reality is really weird, like in the most magical way possible. And there are so many people who just haven't had those experiences or haven't, like been given themselves permission to talk about those experiences. So, just to be able to kind of like create that space, it's building a kind of like the soil to really be able to kind of like bring forth this powerful yield of inspiration. And so I'll just say this last part, like, yeah, we gather to be able to like talk about the things less commonly talked about related to consciousness and metaphysics. But out of that, there's kind of like stages of awakening where it's like, okay, you're awakening to the fact that this reality is not as cut and dry as it appears to be. And then from there, it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do with that knowledge? And then that's where it's kind of like moving us into this call to action to naturally want to be able to share that inspiration, to step into our role as leaders, and ultimately me experiencing that own journey of curiosity and connecting the dots and those aha moments. I never wanted to like try to, like give someone that. I would just kind of like lead them through the path, and then they would have those moments on their own. Like, I think we're almost doing them a disservice if we literally just tell them everything we know based on our own experience. It's like we can kind of point them in the right direction, point towards the moon. But, just with this, out of it, it will naturally lead people to this place where, from my experience, where as we deepen our relationship to the mystery of this reality, and it also awakens us to our potential of who we are, our potential as dreamers within the dreams. And with that comes like this deep sense of awe and wonder and joy and inspiration, and a deeper sense of like connecting with this kind of like cosmic love, this cosmic awareness, the bigger journey of Nasa Te Ipsum. And then from that, again, it's kind of like the journey of the Bodhisattva, the journey of like, it's like we're all walking each other home, sort of thing. So it's like, what's the end goal? Like, it's not even an end goal. It's more just kind of like, it's the spiral. It's the spiral that's ascending, and with that, it's not just about reaching the end. It's about who are you meeting along the way, and to really just be able to celebrate that. And across my journey, I have met so many amazing people along the way. Some of them I have met for moments, some of them I have met for months, some of them I have met for years. And with each passing one, it's kind of like meeting these parts of yourself. And so it's the journey of consciousness, and it's the journey of being able to meet more of who we are. And so that's kind of like the core of who I am and what I believe and what I experience. And then the content that I create on TikTok and YouTube and stuff like that, it's just kind of like a mirror that's kind of like reflecting that through different ways, through my expression, through my creativity, through my song, my music, my space holding, my videos, all that stuff. Anyways, it's kind of interesting, even just now, like giving myself a chance to be able to practice talking about this, because I'm just kind of like, I'm listening to myself saying it at the same time. I'm like, oh yeah, like that's, sometimes we're so caught up in the work that we forget where we came from. And so it's important to kind of go back and just be like, why am I doing this again? Oh yeah, I'm not doing it for likes. I'm not doing it for following. I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it because there's a deeper thing within my heart that has always been very passionate, and it's deeply aligned with a wisdom that cannot be taken away through my own experience, and also a longing to want to be able to help others have their own experiences as well. And through that, like Kevin was saying, it's literally knowing that the shift in consciousness, it's a fractal, it's a Mandelbrot, like one person inspires two inspires four inspires eight. It's the Fibonacci sequence. 8 inspires, boom, suddenly the entire world is like, here we are. Like the amount of people who have woken up across the world, like woken up, quote unquote, within the past year is like more than what has woken up over the past decade. Like it's crazy. Like with like everything that's happened with the world, with all the craziness, the last year, so many people have woken up. So it's like for us, there is an important role for us to continue to play as pillars in the chaos, pillars in the craziness, and the space holders, so that the people who are just waking up can come together and be like, oh, like I want to talk about this. I want to explore this. I'm still figuring it out. And I think that's the humility of what it is that we do is it's not about being on a pedestal, but more so it's about, at times, sometimes, like not even just being at the center of the circle, but creating the circle, and then inviting others to kind of take their turn stepping into the center, and being a focal point for their wisdom to be heard by others. I used to kind of think of paradigm shift as kind of being like a soapbox where people would take turns kind of stepping on and off, kind of like a stage where it's like, okay, let you get on stage, let's listen to you. Okay, come down, I'll get on stage, let's listen to the, and we kind of like take turns passing the talking song. I mean, we're doing it right now. Anyways, let's pass it around. Enough of me babbling on. And but yeah, I mean, do you guys resonate with that? Feel free to echo anything back. And if even what I said is just kind of like helping click some ideas within your hearts as well. And yeah, Kevin, Kristen, we'll pass over to Kristen, and then Kevin jump in. But go ahead, Kristen. We can just chit chat, and you can introduce yourself whenever.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely resonate with the spiral analogy heaps. Like, just like we're just moving around this kind of like trajectory, and just like seeing where colliding with people that are on a similar trajectory and kind of helping each other move forward. Just that torch analogy that Kevin said as well is just super powerful, because just the internet is the best for it now. Like, and so being a content creator doing conscious stuff, it's just like, yeah, the flame just keeps like expanding. So my name's Kristen. I'm a practitioner of a healing modality called the Spiral, which is a like emotional and spiritual transformational 8-week course that's like a really thorough subconscious kind of mapping and releasing course that can really help people to uplift all of their programs that are self-limiting and that kind of thing. But I got into conscious media creation because I was making my crystal jewelry that I'm wearing. I've been making it for about 10 years, but I was just kind of doing it as a little side thing. And I was going to uni and I became a primary school teacher. And I did that for 4 years and suffered from really intense burnout. And it was like absolutely just the hardest thing I'd ever done at the time to peel away from like that career, because I had no one in my sphere that had ever done anything other than seek kind of government work and that kind of like stable one strand career vibe. And I wouldn't have left if I didn't experience the burnout. Like, it was like emotional survival kind of thing. It was like, I need to do something else. Like, my body is like shutting down. I was really unhealthy and like just crying a lot. I started to, like, I had friends on the outside being like, why don't you just pursue your crystals? Like, you've been doing them for years. Like, they're right there. Some people don't even have that. Like, they don't even have something else that they could do. And so I already had an Instagram at the time, and I started to be more public about making the transition from teaching into this other job and why like teaching was so difficult for me, and just started to really open and be vulnerable online, and got some really beautiful responses from it, and just had that like sense of purpose around being someone in people's sphere that was doing the thing. Because a lot of people, like, if they don't have people in their sphere of following a creative path or like following their passion, then they think it's just something that other people get to have and not them, and it's not realistic and all those kind of things. And so I kind of got into conscious media creation to be more emotionally vulnerable, help other people feel like it's normal, like to be overwhelmed, and it's normal to explore other things and try and work your way through. And I really wanted to inspire people to just take a chance on their dreams. And now I've like 6 years into doing this full time, it's just like changed into all kinds of modalities, like this spiral modality. I've done a meditation teacher course and holistic counseling course, and so I do sessions with people, and I run live meditations once a fortnight on my Instagram, and I'm a tarot reader as well. And I'm also, like you, Kevin, I'm training to be a celebrant because I have hosted ceremonies for people, and I am going to marry a couple of my friends within the next 12 months. So it's just like just love creating conscious media to really show people, like to just be one of those representatives of that, like, vitality and passion is a possibility for people to follow. And when you're in kind of authenticity with your passion, you just become more and more spiritual, because your energy is super open, and it's just like you're not like closed. When the spirit is trying to drop into your energy, it's not all closed up by all the things that you have to do, should be doing, all the programs are like not there, so it just kind of floods through you, and you get to have that genuine aliveness and vitality that a lot of people don't recognize is possible when they're stuck in the kind of grind and everything like that. Now it's just kind of like a normalizing passion and self-exploration by continuing to share, so people can see that like people are human and they go through their stuff. It gets deeper and more exciting. And I love that you said, Kevin, that you tell jokes about it, because I'm a bit of a, like, I have a massive inner child, and I love being silly and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, we're doing this deep work, but it doesn't need to be so heavy all the time. And so it's like allowing people to lean in even more because it's fun. And I really, really appreciate that. I appreciate humor and spirituality a lot. And there was something else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, about what you said, Brendon, where you're like, it's not about telling people what to do, but it's about like just kind of, being a representative of thinking for yourself and like exploring your own path. Because I think that as media creators, we can like share our messages, and we have specific intentions around what we want to share half the time, and other times it's just being witnessed in what we're going through as well. But what's really inspiring to people is the energetics behind the way that we speak about things and how we speak about things and how we hold space. It's just like, wow, that's possible. And what you said about the Sasquatch thing, like just being like, oh, you're worried that people are going to think you're weird. Like at the time when I was like, oh, I'm going to do my own business, that was like the weirdest possible thing I could do. And it's not nearly the weirdest thing that I'm into now. Like, so you're constantly pushing your own edge of what's weird, and what's just normalizing that life's so diverse and mystical and bizarre. And so that's kind of why my why was to inspire people out of the grind, and now it's just to be like as open and honest as possible with the spiritual path and how fun and bizarre it is, and help people grow along the way. So yeah,
That's awesome. Well, you're doing a great job of it, Kristen. And Kristen, how long, and this maybe this we'll ask this question for all of us here, like how long have you thought of yourself as being a conscious media creator? Like because I mean, maybe we were doing it before we even called ourselves that or anything like that. Like do you remember, or do you have a general answer for that?
yeah, I don't think I was claiming it, but I'd say 6 years, like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. And Kevin, how long have you been doing this, so to speak?
Yeah, I started making YouTube videos in 2010, and I would say that was really the public jump start. But before that, I had my big first awakening in 2008, and I feel like I was kind of a conscious creator in my sphere of friends. And I guess I was posting on Facebook before that, but it took me a while to kind of work up the courage to put myself on YouTube. As you said, Brendon, back then there was far fewer people talking about these things. And yeah, to me it's just such a sign of hope for humanity, the amount that has changed. And since, I would say, in the last 12 years, like since 2010, when I first started exploring YouTube. Yeah, it's like if we zoom out, one of my favorite quotes is, I believe it's from Reggie Watts. It's, "When in doubt, zoom out." And just take that bird's eye view and see that I think we might actually be on a decent track, even though everything seems so chaotic. That's how it goes down here in the Earth School. So yeah, 2010 is when I really first started making YouTube videos. And I look back, like, I was a freshman in college in my dorm room, and my very first YouTube video, I'm still pretty proud of it. Like, it's a pretty solid video. It's called the "What is Going On" spectrum. And I explain how there's a spectrum of perspectives on what is going on in the world. And I kind of highlight different thinkers that, put them, that I lay out on this spectrum. And there's some yogi guy who's out doing videos barefoot in the snow, and he's like, everything is perfect, so there's that guy. And then there's another guy who I was big into for a while named Derek Jensen, whose whole theory is that, like, civilization is a cancer to this planet, and we need to literally destroy civilization or else this planet is going to die. And he makes some pretty compelling points. I mean, I still resonate with a lot of what he says. And to some degree, I think both things are right. There is a divine perfection to everything, but we also really need to change things on this planet if we want to, live in balance as a species. So anywho, that was my first YouTube video. A fun thing to do for anyone is you click on someone's YouTube channel, you go to the top right bar, you can click sort videos by newest or oldest, and you sort videos by oldest and see, like, what were their very first videos. It's a fun thing. It's a fun thing to do. Anyways, how about you, Brendon?
Thank you, Kevin. As I'm doing this, if you guys want to join me, open up a notepad on your computer and see if you can even just practice, like, writing down some questions for us to practice answering as a group. So we'll just kind of like channel some sort of like collective insight here, and just kind of like, find some fun, playful questions, and again, just like insightful and intentional questions that we can mess around with. I've already written down like almost like 7 or 8 so far. We may just kind of like go through kind of like rapid fire. I can tell as it is, and again, you know, like even there's not a lot of people tuned into this broadcast right now. That's totally okay. So I think even just for us to just kind of be in this space, knowing that people are going to listen to it in the future, and still just using this as an opportunity for us to just kind of like play amongst each other and everything like that. One of the things that I've always held as being very important is, well, actually, I'll kind of get into something in a second. But going back to your question first, Kevin, you know, like how long have I been creating conscious content or thought of myself as a conscious media creator? So I started, I uploaded like my first video on my Skull Babylon YouTube channel in 2009. But even before then, in probably about 2006, I was already basically creating what I was essentially doing is that at that time I was at my university and college for media production. And basically what I found myself doing is, you know, like on my spare time, I was already, you know, into like aliens and Sasquatch and paranormal and starting to learn about psychedelics and things. And then so naturally I was just like starting to like weave it into my school projects. Like I would like find like ways of just kind of like putting these paradigm shifty themes into projects. There was like one video that, this was a little bit later, but there was like a video where we had to like edit a video to show in front of the class. And the video that I edited was just this like super like, it's like super mind-blowing video. It had like quotes from like Joe Rogan and Terrence McKenna and like the Charlie Chaplin speech. It was just like in 2000, like it was like I think that was like 2008, but it was like all the best clips that I had gathered like through the internet at that time, where back in the day, remember where if you would like find good videos, you would like save them onto your computer. There was a time where like me and my friends actually like saved a bunch of really cool videos on our computers, and we would put them on disc and we would hand them out to people and be like, here, take this, it'll blow your fucking mind, right? And just like give them out to people and stuff. Eventually that kind of almost became like the shift buttons, which have the website for Paradigm Shift Central, and kind of accomplished the same thing. But yeah, so I was creating, you know, like relatively conscious content, even in like my school essays and stuff like that. I was just talking about all sorts of like weird and trippy stuff. And yeah, and then in 2009, that's when I started. Before that, in 2000 was it? No, 2011 is when I started my Skull Babylon channel. And then in 2010 is when I started. I actually made, there's like this, there's like old footage of like the events that I had at my college that I just filmed of the Paradigm Shift meetings that never really got uploaded. Dude, like there's so much footage of stuff that just never got posted, of old stuff that I might have to uncover from the archives. And there was like an old, like, there's a video that me and my friend filmed at our school where it was just like me and him sitting across each other on a table, and we had like a monitor on the background playing these like trippy psychedelics, and we were just talking. We were like almost making a podcast, but it wasn't a pod. I don't know. We were just messing around, but it was just like us talking. And you know, it was basically just turning the conversations that we were having on our own spare time and just trying to make something out of it, and then uploading it onto YouTube. And then eventually the events that I was having in my college, what I was doing, I was like, whoa, okay, this is a really good opportunity for me to create content where I would invite guest speakers to do presentations. And I made episodes. I made 9 episodes of 9 different guest speakers that I invited into my school. And like the first one was all about like lucid dreaming and astral projection. Then there was another one all about like Reiki energy healing. There was one about like past lives. There was like, I forget what all the other ones were, but there was quite a few like really, really cool ones that I did. And I created these episodes out of them. That was called the Sight Beyond Sight series. This is still on my YouTube channel. Like this is like some of my oldest content, but it was really good. It was like really well edited and everything. So yeah, since then, you know, I've just been continuing to create content. Again, I've made full length movies. Kevin's actually in those movies as well, in the Journey to Lucidity movies. And, you know, it's interesting because like, I like the past 2 years have been really different in terms of the content that we've been creating. You know, like I've really, as a conscious creator, and I'll just say this and then we'll get into some questions. As a conscious creator, it's kind of interesting because it's like, it's a balance but between doing the things that you want to do and doing the things that are needed. And so, you know, like as much as I could have just been like, oh, you know what, like I'm just gonna go and just like film like, you know, whatever YouTube videos I want and everything like that, and really just, you know, focus my energy on that. As I began maturing as a conscious creator, it just became more and more obvious that, you know, I couldn't do everything at once. I literally had to kind of like pick and choose. And within the past couple, not even just the past couple years, but again, over the past several years, I was really leaning into, I was doing all these like physical meetings for Paradigm Shift Circles. And then I started turning that into a digital podcast. And then I started, once like Google Hangouts started coming around, which was like before Zoom, I started turning in those into digital meetings. And then over the past couple of years, Zoom kind of came around. And then we really just began to focus on, again, like the creation of sacred digital space. And it's interesting because like before COVID came about, nowadays it's like, oh, everybody's got their Zoom rooms, everybody's got their like sacred digital circles. Back then, like there weren't that many people doing it. So like I was already doing it for several years, and then suddenly everyone started doing it, and I was like, oh, this is great. I've already been practicing. But over the past couple of years, I haven't really made YouTube videos in the same way that I used to. And the way that I used to would be like going out and filming and like editing and spending, like a week really creating this really cool video. And honestly, I miss that. And today I actually pulled out Lacey's old like DSLR camera that I totally forgot she had. And I'm like, man, I want to start like filming videos in the old way. And I'm actually picking it up now because I'm like, again, like I'm going to be I have a child on the way who's literally, going to be born within this next month. And so I'm like, oh, like I want to use this like DSLR camera and like film stuff of the family, like of the baby and of Lacey, and almost kind of create these like home movies. I don't even know what I'm going to make, but I love the idea of just kind of like picking up an old fashioned camera, not an old fashioned camera, not like that old, not like a freaking cranker or something like that. But, like something that's not a phone. I like filming with a phone, but there's something for me that's so just like, I love just being able to use an actual camera and editing on my computer. And I haven't done that like at all over the past couple of years. And again, I'm just kind of talking back to that point that, as conscious media creators, it's not always about doing what we want. It's about reflecting on the question of what is needed, what is needed for the community. And that was always a question that I would always go back to time and time again, like relative to like what type of event would be needed, what type of content would be needed, what type of meditation would be needed. And then just kind of, again, doing this in a way where the reason we do it is to be able to serve. The reason we do it is to be able to again, continue to just like show up for the ways that are going to help support the community. And I'll just say this, and welcome, Candace. Thank you for joining. We're just kind of in the middle of talking about our journey as conscious creators here. Over the past couple of years, like as much as I could have just been, doing YouTube videos and doing my own thing, I knew I'm like, man, like people right now are struggling, like people were just like suffering from social isolation, like depression, just like really just kind of like these heavy emotions. And for me, I'm like, okay, what is interesting? Like what I want to be able to focus on is I want to be able to focus on creating those like spaces that will kind of like bring levity into people's life, that will create an experience where they'll walk away from it and they'll be like, oh, like my soul feels refreshed. I needed that. Like that was something that nurtured something inside of me. So I wanted to be able to focus on creating those events that would create those engaging discussions and create those meaningful moments, and to really be able to challenge, even in the midst of like these digital spaces, how intimate can we make them? And I think we've proven that, and I know even just for the people that are here, you guys have been a part of that. Some of the events that we've done where it's like, whoa, like this like touched my soul, and like how special is that? So, it's like, how can I continue to not only just create content, but create events that can really just kind of, like help lift people's spirits, help nurture people's souls. And now we're kind of moving into this age where, people are kind of like shifting beyond the pandemic and stuff like that. And I feel, even just for myself, like I feel for all of us right now, it's like, this is a big period for us to kind of like level up. We've kind of gone through the past couple of years. It's kind of been like this cocooning phase. So it's like, who are we emerging into? And that's a, question we get to live. And the last thing I'll just say here is that, as conscious media creators, we get to share this very kind of like vulnerable and intimate experience where, our content is not just our content is literally a reflection of our own growth. It is an ongoing documentation of our own unique experience of the shift in consciousness. And so literally, like, as we are growing, people are watching that. We're giving them this lens into our life, and they see that. And so it's like, how will we continue to reflect our shift in consciousness through an intentional way with the content we're creating? And that, for me, being a conscious media creator, again, conscious awareness, intention, it's just bringing that extra step to be able to say, oh, am I just going to upload something just, because it may be whatever. It's like, no, like I'm going to upload this like because I know it's going to be meaningful, or because I know it's going to help inspire, or because I know it's going to help, nurture someone's heart or lead them back. I'll just say this. As a conscious media creator, very simply put, our mission, and this is just, again, for you to feel if it resonates, but to simplify it, our mission is to help lead people back to the wisdom of the heart. And that is like something that we will be able to do continuously over and over and over again in many different forms, through events, through videos, through humor, through, again, serious conversations, through the joy, through the shadow, all of it in between. So, I honor everyone here. And again, for all of the people who may be listening to this, it's just for you to just kind of like reflect on that question. How can we continue to bring people back to the wisdom of the heart? That's a question to be lived. So anyways, sorry, I kind of went on a little bit longer than I was just getting on a roll there. I get excited about this stuff, man. Like, this is my life.
I will go.
Hi, Candace.
Hi, because I have to go at 9:25. But
go for it, Candace.
But my thing is, I think to bring lightness to the world is to like do it through art and expression, and as we demonstrate it, then people will be more open, and they'll let down their guard, they'll let down their fear. We are the change makers of the world, and it's us that make the change, because we are all one.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Thank you, Candace, for jumping right in there. So awesome. Sweet. Were you guys writing down some questions as I was just kind of like going off there for a little bit? Did we write down a few? I mean, I know we probably got more than we can even get through, but go ahead, Kevin. We'll just kind of popcorn style right now.
Okay. So my question is, so for context for this question, just a few days ago, I did a liver cleanse, which is where you fast for 2 days, only drinking water and tea, and then you drink. On the night of the second day, I drink Epsom salt with orange juice, and that serves as a laxative. And then you take a half cup of olive oil, and that flushes through the liver and releases all this gnarly gunk that's been stored in there. And I've literally, yeah, it's wild. I mean, I've done it almost pretty much every year since about 2013, and literally, usually I do it in the spring, in between winter and spring. Every single time, my mind is blown about how my state of being shifts from this to way, way over here, because I cleanse my internal system. It literally feels like I'm in a different reality. Like and I wasn't profoundly unhealthy in any way, but just like the clarity that I feel, and it just feels like a whole new clearness of reality has opened up. And this has happened to me countless times. And I like to say that it is a miraculous experience. So it's this miracle of how when you do some major shift on your internal world, it reflects out, it mirrors out onto the outer world. And so that concept, my question, to weave that into a question, is to ask both of you, if there's an experience that comes to mind about how you made a profound internal shift and you noticed in almost immediate change on the outside, if there's a specific story, and also to ask how that concept informs the way that you go through life. Because to me, it's like this crazy thing. It's like maybe actually maybe the monks were right. Maybe the greatest way to affect change is to literally like sit in a cave and just like, because you're purifying your internal world so much that you're somehow mirroring that out to the world. But it's like basically the question is like, how do you balance like the internal change, the inner work, with the trying to change the outer world or doing your service to others? It's like that. I see it as kind of like a feedback loop, like change yourself, change the world, change yourself, change the world. But you can burn yourself out if you just constantly outwards, but you can get too self-centered or just bored if you're just always trying to change yourself. So I'm curious to hear either a story or just how that concept informs your process.
Yeah, Kristen, go right ahead. And again, we can kind of like weave this how it kind of like shows up in our content and the way we kind of, express ourselves as well. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I've done that same cleanse and I was like mind blown at how I felt. I was like, I'm going to do this every year. And then I haven't. But I've been meaning to do it for ages because I remember the first time eating after it had finished, how much energy I was getting from that food, that it was making me laugh. Like I was just like, like all of this like buzzing through my body from processing the food with such a clean system. But yeah, I think the whole like sitting in a cave, doing the work and just emanating that purity and everything, like probably had more of a place and more of a higher impact back in the day where there was less things like affecting the energy of the whole world. Like there's just so much stimuli going on that it's just like if there's just this handful of people in comparative to the whole population doing that we really just need now people that are proactively trying to create the ripple effect rather than doing that kind of more, I don't know if passive is the right word, but yeah, that internal solitary work. But yeah, I mean, I never got into what I'm doing to be a practitioner of any kind of healing, but essentially the thing that gave me the most internal transformation was going through the spiral the first time. And part of the reason I went for it was because there was some people that I was following on socials where I could see their transformation, like, and I was like, I want what they're having. I don't know what's going on with them, but I want that level of just vitality and like optimism, and just they seem like I'd had a history of being kind of like really rescuey with people in my past. They seem to have endless amounts of energy to give to other people, and I am a really giving person, but I'd gotten in this loop when I was teaching of just trying to preserve all my energy because I was giving too much, and I was like, I just want that. I want to be back in my giving state and feeling like giving doesn't take anything from me. It's just like emanating outward. And so doing the spiral really had a profound shift on my life that I immediately was like, I need to be a practitioner of this. Even if I can just go take some of my friends through it, that would be magical enough, because I had so much programming from events in my past, and particularly from my parents being super conservative, and just like shame about my body and shame about my sexuality and different things that was not able to breathe at all, because I was just like, kind of, I was really on my meditative path and everything, really good at self-observation and all these kind of things, but I had these blind spots that I couldn't see. So it was like I'd analyze particular problems to the absolute end of the earth and still hadn't been able to get clarity. I just needed someone to dilute my internal dialogue and kind of hack my system a little bit, and that's kind of what it did. And I came out of the spiral at the end of 2019, and prior to that, because of my conservative family and just internal beliefs, it was just the biggest cringe, not okay thing to like have my spirituality on the outside. It was very much like, this is a whole private thing. No one, you don't talk about this stuff with people. That was basically the program running in my head. After the spiral, that was gone, and I was like gearing myself up to run meditation groups other than just the 2 girlfriends that I had been doing it with. And the pandemic happened, and I was just like, holy moly. Like I immediately was like, this is going to have this profound impact on everyone. Everyone's mental health is going to be quickly like going into the bin in different like like in all the different contexts with work and just like socially and all of the stuff. I was already really switched on to that people work really hard and just like try and escape it on the weekend by going out and partying and that kind of thing, and they didn't even get to have that now, and they were still in this kind of heavy work related environment. And anyway, so I was like, I just had that energy to go, well, it actually does a disservice if I don't get over my shit now. I've got the energy to like offer something, like, and my mental health's really stable from all this healing work. I can't just keep this to myself. It's kind of greedy if I do. And so that's when I started my meditation group that I was doing every week, and now I do it fortnightly, and it's been going since then, and got like a really loyal group. And we kind of like do tarot at the start and integrate the reading into what we do in the healing. And it's just really, kind of just releasing energetic emotional blocks and saying affirmations to kind of redesign what's going on in there so that people can have that inner strength with what's happening. And that was really, the pandemic really pushed me into leadership. But if I hadn't done the spiral beforehand, I still probably would have been in self-protection mode. But I was just like, it's just unfair if I keep this vitality to myself. And so I went outwards, and it's something really beautiful about being of service helps you embody what you're about. So because when you're in purpose mode, you have heaps of energy, but it's like you're not in purpose mode unless the thing you're doing is meaningful to you. And so it kind of is that feedback loop. It's like you're giving to them and they say things to you about how impactful it is, and it encourages you to deepen the practice more, and then you have more to give, and it becomes that ecosystem of energy. And it's it's just a beautiful thing being of service. And I think that just whatever you do with any kind of healing work or fasting and that kind of thing, it's just like, just really pay attention to the stuff that works, and just be like, don't get in that place where you're like, I'm just gonna be perpetually searching and trying every little thing. Like, also be like, remind yourself of the things that worked and keep cultivating that vitality, because that gives you the energy to give to people, and that's where you're going to have that external impact rather than the monk, the cave monk vibes. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Kevin, totally, if you want to reply to that, I mean, we can just chit chat here. We'll kind of just keep an eye on the time. I'd love to even just see if we can kind of, after this question, kind of go through the next ones that we got, almost kind of like a rapid fire session, just to kind of like give ourselves almost like a quiz on answering these very concisely. Kevin, you already kind of talked about yours. Do you want me to just kind of share my own quick response to that?
Please go.
Sure. So, it's interesting because, I mean, the immediate thing that comes to mind is what I've literally just gone through. And I spent the past 2 weeks just like having a regular good old fashioned cold. Both me and Lacey just had a good old fashioned cold, and like with that, like, it's the body is constantly looking to be able to just kind of like level itself up. And so, when we got the cold, I had this perspective before, but again, it was kind of like this basic idea where, first of all, I think like our perception on like germs and viruses is probably, maybe not fully encapsulating what's really going on. But basically, one of I saw a video like years ago, and it was basically this lady who was kind of talking about like this like channeled message from higher dimensional beings, and they're basically just saying it's like relatively speaking, when humans get like a common cold, by the time they're done having that common cold, they've actually kind of like shifted up in vibration, because within that, like, the cold itself isn't like the bad thing. The cold is actually just like the process of being able to kind of like release and purge the things that are kind of like just like getting in the way of our energy channels, so to speak. Like all the mucus, all the phlegm, all the stuff that's coming out of you. By the time you're done with that, if you've kind of like approached that process with the kind of like that understanding of just kind of surrendering to it and just allowing yourself to just kind of like know that by the time you're done this, there's going to be a wave for you to be able to ride. So that's where, for me, like I've just kind of, gotten over my cold over the past couple of days. And immediately I'm just like, man, like I feel so, like this cold came at the perfect time for me, where I just feel like it's synchronistically happening because it was actually for me. It was for me to be able to, like, all that stuff that I cleared out of me, like, dude, that was probably there for like months and months and months. Like, I didn't need it in there. And now that it's out of there, kind of like what you were saying, Kevin, with your other cleanses and stuff like that, you just literally feel like you're in like that next kind of like vibrational state. It's kind of like this lightness, the energy, the water is flowing more clearly, more smoothly. And for me, that's where, you know, like I'm getting back to the gym now that I'm allowed to, now that they've like welcomed me back into society after being a leper for the past however many months and stuff like that, as a, you know, and stuff like that. But anyways, here in Ontario, they weren't letting certain people do certain things. So now I'm like, sweet, now I can finally go back to the gym. I'm really just going to take advantage of this. But again, I'm doing it in such a way where, you know, I think if we can really just make a promise to ourselves to not only be gentle, but also constantly just be allowing ourselves to know that we're meeting more parts of who we are, and to become who we are born to be, and to continue to level up. And so, you know, for me, it's like, man, like, if I'm becoming a dad, I want to be the best dad that I can be, and not just for my child, but, you know, for myself. And then I know that in turn shows up into the work that I do. Candace, go ahead.
You are already a perfect dad. You already play that role. And
thank you, Candace. I appreciate that.
You're the greatest dad in the world.
Thank you, Candace. I appreciate that.
The baby that's coming, the little human, he's gonna rock the world.
We're definitely prepared. Yeah.
He's being formed right now as we speak.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna happen soon, man. We're thinking it's probably gonna happen on the full moon, so probably around like March 20th or something. So right on the equinox.
You're a spirit dad to us all.
What was that?
You're a spirit dad to us all.
Thanks, Kristen. And again, you know, it's just like dad archetype is also, again, kind of just like it's an archetype that's in all of us. It's kind of like this, like, it's kind of like wolf pack leader, protector, but it's again, I think, you know, kind of like a good dad energy is also the mother energy. It's the nurturer, it's the space holder. So again, you know, like it's not just kind of like one or the other. But yeah, you know, it's anyways, I appreciate you guys saying that, but yeah, you know, for me, I just kind of wanted to reiterate, just, I guess, a little bit of my own experience of the past little bit, and just sharing the inspiration that I've been cultivating. And again, just kind of like seeing those opportunities where I think it's going to be, there are going to be certain times where reality is going to be like, it's time for you to purge. It's time for you to purge. And it's not really going to be our will. It's just going to be our will to choose how we surrender to the process. But then there are going to be other times where, you know, it's going to take our will to be able to make those choices, to be able to say, like, you know what, I'm going to try fasting. I'm going to try doing things that are outside of my comfort zone, cold showers, eating differently, showing up differently, sleeping differently. You know, if you want to do something you've never done, you have to do something. If you want to get somewhere you haven't been, you have to do something you haven't done. So I think, you know, as we continue to literally not just like try to do this from like a superficial point of view, but to literally know that in becoming better versions of ourselves, through us, the universe literally expands. It's not, again, it's kind of like this ripple effect. So it's interesting because, again, you know, as conscious creators, it's like, yeah, we're like making videos and doing stuff on the internet and stuff like that, but the true work of what we do is simply to be us, and then everything else just ripples out. You know, I remind people, it's like your job, number one, is to take care of yourself, you know, to take care of yourself. And then in doing so, you'll be able to continue to show up for others, while continuing to take care of others. It's always going to be the balance and everything like that. I'd love to be able to move into a few more of the questions here. I know we could probably just talk on this stuff forever. We're going to aim to get done by about 10 p.m. EST, and we'll just kind of see how many questions we can go through. You have to head out shortly?
I have to go shortly, but if I can come back, I will.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you're able to make it when you did.
Yeah, you know me. You guys know me. I'm always around 24/7. Everywhere I go.
Thank you, Candace. Cool. Okay.
Candace.
All right. Okay. Let's take turns kind of going around with different questions. I'll ask one, and then Kevin, and then Kristen. Let's just kind of like go around, and Candace, you can take part in this as long as we got time. Okay. So quick question for us here. I'll answer last. So like less than 1 minute responses each. how has being a conscious creator helped you grow personally? So I know we kind of touched upon that, but how has being a conscious creator helped you grow personally? Don't think too hard about it. Just speak from the heart. Candace, you
I'll
want to go for it?
It's made me, being a conscious creator has made me more of a power monster in creating abundant everywhere. That's me.
Thank you, Candace. Kristen or Kevin?
It's motivated me to be in deeper integrity with my values and practices. So if I'm offering service, then I need to be in the best energetic position to be offering the highest quality service, and so it feeds that embodiment and integrity with what you're about.
Very well said. Kevin, go for it.
So one of my core messages is to encourage everyone to have a strong morning practice or a rising ritual. And that's been a key part of my life for about 12 years. And it can be hard sometimes to motivate myself to work out in the morning or go for a walk when I feel groggy or whatever. But knowing that if I do take care of myself and do the inner work, then I'm going to be able to show up well for my clients, for my community. If I slack off and don't do my morning practice, then I know that I won't have the same degree of presence and energy and enthusiasm to show up for the people that I support. So yeah, being a conscious creator, it motivates me to do my inner work, and then vice versa.
Very well said. Absolutely. Yeah. Echoing that. I'll just kind of try to add a different angle from this. For me, being a conscious creator has helped me grow personally through many ways. So I'll just try and focus in on one here.
1 minute, Brendon.
Let me flub my own rules here.
I don't think you've ever spoken for a sweet 60 seconds.
They call me Skull Babylon, man. Okay. All right. Let me just see here. So for me, being a conscious creator has helped me grow personally. It's allowed me to be able to develop more confidence in trusting a process that's bigger than my own. It's allowed me to really just be able to get better at listening to my heart, to get better at intentionally being a channel for creativity to speak through me, for consciousness to speak through me. It's allowed me to really experience the joy of what it's like to be able to practice showing up for something bigger than myself, to be a part of something bigger than myself, and to see the joy in inviting other people to be able to also show up in that service. So it's taught me a lot about what service means and to find purpose through service, I would say. So, okay. Kristen or Kevin, who wants to ask another question? I assume, how many questions did you guys write down, give or take?
I'm struggling to write questions that you can answer quickly. That's basically, I wrote some questions, but
game, man.
A quick question. I was gonna say, what's the funniest mishap you've had making content?
Oh, interesting. Kevin, do you got any? I feel like I have to think about that.
Well, I'll share one that was pretty funny. I was at this phenomenal retreat at Esalen, which is this retreat center on Big Sur, California on the coast. It's been around for 50 years. Terrence McKenna, Alan Watts, lots of legendary people have been there. They have natural hot springs there. It's a phenomenal place. And I attended a leadership summit there, and a lot of really awesome people were there. Y'all watching may have heard of Preston Smiles. He's actually a friend of mine that I met back in 2012 through this same group of people that was at the summit. And so we all went there, and my friends are phenomenal musicians. So he was like, hey, let's all get together and have Dylan and Diana sing the song, and we'll all sing it together, and we'll just have like this group energy vibe going. So he sets up his camera. He sets up 2 cameras, and they're both filming us. We're all jamming. We're having this great session. And right at like the peak of the thing, the camera starts tilting over. Preston like does this crazy move and catches it like midair and like stands it back up. And it was like straight out of a movie. He barely caught this like really fancy camera. And the video on YouTube, you can see it. It's like everyone's vibing, and then it's like, and then Preston grabs it up to his face, and he's like, "Holy shit!" So that just came to mind. Yeah, if you want to look it up, it's called Shepherds of the Dawn, and I think it probably is the Love Mob, which is the group that he used to run. But yeah, it's a funny video. It's probably like 3/4 of the way in, but it's only like a 6-minute video. Yeah. Anyway, that was an indirect moment. But that's what came to mind. So there you go.
Nice.
Awesome. Great answer. A couple things came to mind. One of them, again, also at a festival. It was the 3rd year that I went to Lucidity to film footage for the Journey to Lucidity documentaries, and I just remember it was either like the 2nd or the 3rd night, and at this point it was one of those nights where like me and a couple of the like I met some like really cool people, and we were just vibing, and kind of in the spirit of festival, we were just kind of like going with the energies, and it's just like sleep was not on our mind. And then it kind of got to this point where it was like probably like 4 or 5 a.m. and then there was like this tent that was set up, and during the day it was like a tent that speakers were doing stuff on, and presentations were happening. By 4 and 5 a.m. in the morning, it basically just became like open mic. And then so eventually, like I just remember like all of us just kind of like lounged out, and I just remember myself like going up there, and I just like did this whole like comedy routine where I was making these jokes, and it's weird because like I can't even remember like what exactly I was saying, but it was like hilarious, like legitimately hilarious jokes. I honestly can't remember it though, because it was actually weird because like it was at the point where I think the batteries on my camera had died, so it was kind of like, but it was just like this, it was everything that kind of led up to this moment. And we were just like so goofy. It was like we were like on mushrooms without being on mushrooms. We were just so vulnerable. And I just remember just like laughing and just like, oh, it was just, I mean, again, me explaining it doesn't really like fully do it justice, but just like the atmosphere of all of us just in this tent, like freaking 5 a.m. at a festival, didn't end up sleeping that night. That morning we actually like went up to the top of a mountain and like filmed some stuff on a sunrise and stuff, which was really cool. And then there was another thing that I'll just mention real quick. And I guess your question was like, what was like the funniest? Was it like the funniest mishap?
Funniest mishap. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't even know if those are mishaps, but I was going to say another funny thing that I did, which was also a version of stand-up comedy. So I don't know if I'm being too literal here, but was when I went to a stand-up, like there was like a local stand-up comedy like gig thing happening in my city. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to do stand-up comedy. And this is like years later. So I like created this whole bit. This is actually on YouTube. This exists. And I created this whole bit where I did like this whole story where it was like Superman versus polyamory. And it was like, and it was like Superman, like the basic premise is like, it's like Superman's like faced all these like all these foes and enemies over the years, but his like biggest challenge to date is like navigating polyamory. And it was like this whole skit where it was like like he like comes home from like fighting like like Lex Luthor or something, and then like Lois is there, and she's like Clark, I think it's like there's something I want to talk to you about, and it's just like, oh, it kind of goes on and on. Like this video exists, and then she's like, it's like I'd like to be able to practice like seeing other people and dating, and then like this whole scene is like, and this is me like talking about it and like acting it out, and there's footage of me like acting it out in this club, and the ridiculous thing is that like no one else was laughing except one guy. Like one guy legitimately is just like, this is awesome, and like everyone else is just like, what is this, right? I was just like so confident, like I was just ridiculously confident in me telling this story. And I remember there was like, I was like laughing at myself when I was doing it, and I just remember there was like these particular parts where I would get into the character of like Superman. And he was just like, he's like, Lois, like, what are you doing? It's like, you can't do this. It's like, who is it? Is it Bruce? is it Bat Bitch? Is that who it is? And how like Bat Bitch became like a term that fucking blew the roof off the house.
Oh my
but it was,
God.
not to spoil it too much, but then eventually, like by the end of it, it's like Superman actually goes through this whole like internal reflection process, and eventually he understands that if he truly loves someone, then he wants the best for them, even if it doesn't include him. And so he actually wants Lois to be able. He's like Lois, like I want this to work, and so it's just I'll have to send it to Kristen. I'm sure
I will love it. You know, I will.
that was actually like, it was funny because like even at the time, like when I wrote that whole skit, that was actually something that I kind of like drew from my own personal experience and stuff at the time. So I'm just like, okay, like let's create something out of this and stuff like that. So I don't know if that was a mishaps, but I mean, maybe the one guy laughing was the mishaps.
That is so funny.
But if you look up Superman versus polyamory, and then
I will.
Do you know who Connor and Brittany are on YouTube? They're like a couple that talk about polyamory a lot. Anyways, I sent them. Some people would know who they are. They're like super popular. Superman versus polyamory. Is this even going to?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna look it up because
there it is. Superman versus polyamory 2 years ago, January 7th, 2000. It was like right before the pandemic. I posted.
Yeah, you need to do an open mic of comedy. There's probably a bunch of people in Paradigm Shift.
I mean, we've done kind of like open mics that have included comedy, but it's hard, man. Like getting people to like feel confident with doing open mic.
Yeah.
Even just kind of it's hard. Like you gotta have like a full skit kind of prepared. It's really hard.
One of the guy that made the Spiral is named Dane Thomas, and he does some spiritual stand-up, and it's so funny. Like I've just seen snippets of it, and it's basically stand-up for this kind of community, because it's just talking about, goddess energy and masculine embodiment, and like, but just kind of taking the piss out of it as well. And it's just like, it's all stuff that's talked about so seriously because it's embodiment work, and it's really refreshing to get some comedy out of it.
No, that comedy is always like, I think even just between the three of us here, there's a lot of funny bones.
I've been told by my friends that I'm a comedian's dream because I just laugh at anything. Like, and I was that one person laughing at a comedian recently because he just dropped into some absurdist stuff and said that he's been swooping magpies. He'd been going around swooping magpies and said something about headbutting nests full of baby magpies, and no one was laughing, and I just lost it. And he was just like, "Oh, she liked that joke a bit too much," and then started including me in the show. And I was just like, I can't help it. You're being ridiculous. But like, I think that laughter is a really sacred thing, even though it feels like it's hard to describe why it is, but it's so innocent. It's just like completely organic thing that goes on, and it just shows that you're in the heart, and that you're just like receptive to joy, like so receptive to joy. One of my funniest mishap was when I was doing one of my guided meditations, my fortnightly ones. We were like towards the end of it, and because I'm not just guiding the meditation, I'm meditating too, so I'm just like closed eyes meditating, and it goes for about an hour. So by the time like we're getting to the end, I'm pretty fluffed up, and I'm like, it's just all channeling and it's coming through, but I'm like, my ability to articulate it sometimes wavers because I'm in that meditative brain state, and I accidentally said clown chakra instead of crown chakra. And then laughed my face off, and because it was alive, I can't tell who else is laughing, but I just couldn't stop laughing. I'm just like, I'm just gonna trust that they're all laughing and hope this isn't ruining the thing. And at the end, they all messaged me just being like, "That was classic." Like,
that's like a TikTok video right there, like some sort of like gimmicky, like kind of like PSA about activating your clown chakra. Kevin, I could see one of your characters doing that or something.
You can use that.
Yeah. Anyways, it's good laughing with you guys. Man, that question went on for a while. But no, I mean, like, actually, it's funny because that kind of I had another question here, and it was, how has humor played a role in your content?
All right, yeah.
And that's definitely something that, like there's this great quote, I think it's by like H.G. Wells or something, where he's like, if you're going to tell people the truth, make them laugh, or else they will kill you. Where it's just like, it's like sometimes it's just like, you gotta like, if you're gonna like communicate something, like find a way to kind of like be satirical and things. Like I've done that plenty of times, like in TikTok. TikTok's a great place for satire, and fucking just taking a piss on it and stuff like that. So, but anyways, if somebody else has a question here, I don't want to jump the gun on that. I guess it was back to me anyways. But we can let me just see what other questions we got. Did you guys want to talk about how humor's played a role in your content? I mean, we could just take a minute there and then we'll set the clock at the top of the hour. So we'll be done. Whatever we get here in between now and the top of the hour, that's it. And then we'll be done. So I gotta switch out and do some other stuff. So, but yeah, go ahead and take a moment to reflect. If there's more to share on that, how has humor played a role in your content? Because I know we definitely have some experience in that. And, yeah.
I mean, my content isn't specifically like aligned with humor, but it's more like just I use it to draw attention to how absurd things are, so that we can just kind of soften into the ridiculousness of synchronicities and just trying to the struggle of articulating spiritual experiences. So just kind of just laughing. It's an ambient effect of trying to describe it, but it doesn't play a huge role in my specific content. But I do laugh in my meditations, depending on what comes through.
And that's where, I've for a good while I was always facilitating and incorporating like laughter practice meditation into what we were doing and everything like that. It's like laughter is like an immediate way to activate like the heart chakra or the clown chakra, or both. Either whatever one you want.
Clown chakra activate.
The clown chakra. No, the clown chakra is it's the nose, right? It's like, what's wrong with you? It's just my clown chakra.
It's between the throat and the third eye.
Makes sense. Like that's the tone for it. Like the clowns were actually these like esoteric jokes. Like, well, it's interesting though, because it's like you think of like the fool archetype, right? It's like that is the clowns. It's just like, damn, man, maybe the clowns were teaching us something all along, man.
Oh yeah, there's so much wisdom in innocence. So
there is. Yeah. Kevin, do you want to take a swing at this shit show here?
Sure. I think this is a glorious show.
There's some good stuff growing out of this shit, that's for sure.
Good stuff does grow out of shit.
Well, I will channel Grandma Dolores for this one, and I just think that our world has a strong case of serious itis, and we all need to loosen up our butt chakras a little bit. Our butt chakras are quite tight, and it would do us all some good to pull down our pants and put our butts on Mother Earth, because that's a great way to relax your butt chakra and just soak up some of that good earth energy through your roots. So in my journey, I've always incorporated humor, whether it's my poetry. I think that you need to touch on the whole human experience, not just the spiritual, the nitty-gritty. Well, the spiritual includes the humor, because when you realize that we're all one and we're just in this glorious divine play, this big dance of different costumes, different human costumes, it just, you have to laugh, because you're like, wow, look, there's the universe in a funny costume over there. And there's the universe in another funny costume over there. And it's like, you have to remember that, oh yeah, we're doing a dance. So I kind of turned into the water boy midway.
I was about to say, that was little Nicky there. That was like literally little Nicky I was hearing too, or the water boy.
No,
or
it's Bobby Boucher. Bobby Boucher. He's the water boy, and he's got some high quality H2O.
I'd like to see just kind of like a guided meditation by Bobby Boucher.
We could make that happen. We could make that happen.
Bobby Boucher, just kind of like we could all just kind of like just find that resonance. Or
Yeah.
I'm ready. I've got time right now.
So start out with your clown chakra getting activated from the high frequencies, and
Breathing in through the nose.
You got the voice already. I'm trying to find the voice. It's really interesting, like trying to like impersonate voices, because is that it? Is this where is it? Where is that? You gotta get, like, you're trying to like explore your tonations of your voice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, like literally that was like me like doing my like South Park Canadian gigs like in my head like hours before I filmed it, where it's just like hey, fuck you, buddy, like, you know, just like a bunch of that. It's just like, was that it? It's like, no, I need to like lean into the A more or something. So
Yeah,
need more like kind of like sound or something to it. So but you got the Bobby Boucher there.
yeah, I love it. I can't wait to investigate your content to find laughter.
Yeah.
It really makes me feel at home when people are creating this kind of content with humor, because just the culture in Australia is very like larrikin and piss takey, and it's like has its pluses and its minuses, because it means that generally people aren't as open about being super wholesome because they're worried about being ridiculed. And so this community's been really helpful for me, because I even noticed when I was over in the US and I did some festivals over there and met some really cool people, that everyone was a lot more, like, just to generalize, they're a lot more open about like deeper, meaningful stuff quicker. It's a lot harder to find, particularly with males in Australia. There's just like a bit of like that blokey culture and that piss-taking culture that kind of keeps people's guards up longer. But then it's also where I grew up, and I'm also a larrikin. So like when people have the best of both.
The terms you just spoke about.
You don't know them?
First of all, what is piss taking, and then what was the other thing you said?
Larrikin.
Larrikin?
You don't know larrikin? Oh my gosh, what does it mean? It just means like really jovial and silly and like not serious. Like a leprechaun has larrikin energy. It's just like, it's very kind of, it's yeah.
This often badly behaved young man, a person with apparent disregard for convention, a maverick. It's an Australian term, New Zealand term.
I didn't know it was Australian. It just means like they're
rowdy
like
but
silly.
good-hearted person. That's us. That's us.
What is it?
A rowdy but good-hearted person. That's us too. So yeah.
So and what was it? Piss taking
with apparent disregard for social or political conventions. So yeah, that sounds about right. So
piss taking mean you're taking the piss out of something. Oh my god, I sound so Australian. I'm really conscious of it now. Taking the piss out of something means teasing something. So it's just like if someone, I guess if someone says something heaps lovey-dovey, they're liable to be teased for it. Be like, I mean, I don't want to use inappropriate words when I try and give an example, but it's just like, it generally means that vulnerability is liable to be teased more than it is to be embraced in a general way in the culture.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
particularly with men. It's like, so I don't know if you know the word bloke either. It's just like, I guess for the equivalent, the only equivalent I can draw with like maybe American words is like hillbilly-ish. It's like it's or redneck or whatever. It points to a demographic of a style of people or something, and whether it's accurate or not, you know. But it's just
Kevin's got, what is it? Is it Electric Bill's kind of a redneck, isn't he?
Well, I'm actually a Hare Krishna. I was.
You haven't even met all his personalities yet, Chris. And there's like,
yeah, there's quite a few. There's quite a few that could come down to this.
It's like the Council of 12, and it's just like, yeah, like who's on it again? It's just like I'm just imagining them as like these like higher dimensional beings that channeled through Kevin.
Yeah. Well, I had quite a revelation. I had quite a revelation, which is that we are infinite multidimensional beings having a human experience, and therefore, why on earth would we only emit our energy through a certain personality structure when we could have multiple avenues at which through we could emit our energy? And it is necessary to be mindful that you don't want to get mentally unstable, but you can also realize that you can channel your energy through different archetypes. I mean, this is what actors do. They are able to take on a certain energetic signature and embody it in a magical, dazzling way, and they become that energy. But there's also kind of a base template that is their normal voice, you know.
But it's all you. It's all still you.
Yeah, it is interesting, you know. Again, as going back to kind of what it is that we're supposed to be doing here. I don't know what the hell we were just doing for the last 20 minutes.
This is great.
No, honestly, this
I'd listen to this back.
Yeah, no, shout out to everybody. Thank you for tuning into this beautiful shift show. It's just us hanging out, but again, this is where the inspiration comes from, man. It's a complete and utter shift show. But you know, I was gonna say, because this is actually kind of going back to, you know, being a conscious creator. One of the things that I've come to be able to just explore is like all of us have like these like multiple facets of who we are, depending on what it is that we're doing, depending on who we're speaking to, depending on the space that we're creating. And I think it's important to be able to kind of like begin to explore those and discover those, you know. So like there's going to be some times where you're going to show up and it's going to be like, you know, like just the way you'll talk, it'll be like very intentional. Like maybe you're like leading a meditation, and then there's going to be other times where, you know, just might be kind of like goofy and playful and everything like that. And it's interesting because it's just like, you know, like it's, you know, we have kind of like this idea that it's like, oh, you know, like throughout our life, we like wear different masks and stuff. And sometimes that can be sort of interpreted as if it's like a negative thing, that we're wearing all these different masks. Instead, I like to kind of, you can think of it as like almost like, again, like different characters. But what can it look like when you actually get to the point where you can kind of, you know, like consciously begin to integrate those multiple different masks, so to speak, or hats, or however you want to put it. And then to, again, be able to kind of like tune into them at different points intentionally for the different purposes that you're looking to serve. Do you guys know what I mean? Like sort of thing, yeah. Where it's like we're not just like there's it's not like you're just talking to the same version of Brendon every time. I'll be like a different version of Brendon depending on who I'm talking to, depending on what I'm talking about, depending on what the need may be.
Depending on how many parallel realities you've shifted that day.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, 5 seasons in a day over here for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kristen.
Well, I was just gonna say what Brendon said. Well, maybe we can put that into a question. Like, what are the notable archetype things that come into your content creation? So obviously the comedian, like, or like the jester or the fool, whatever you want to call it, like comes into yours. So what are the main archetypes do you think that you embody most potently in your content creation?
Well, I would like to embody the mycelial network. I am a representative of the fungi nation, and I am here in human form. I have taken on this costume as a human to remind everyone of the mycelial web.
Yeah, I gotta
I'm sorry. That's great.
One cool thought I had was that what was the thought? Okay, so
you have the thought, or did the thought have you?
No.
Think about that for a second. Are we just the vehicles for thoughts to exist? Are they even ours? Or do the
No,
thoughts
no,
just
no.
like exist? Sorry, go ahead.
So check this out. There's another planet where they have a drug called being human.
Yes.
And you smoke the drug, and then you pop out in this reality, and you like, dude, that dude is tripping on being human.
Yeah, there's lots of people that need a what do you call it? What do you call it when they have at festivals where they have the not the first aid tent, but the other one where you go when you're overwhelmed.
Safe trip tent kind of thing.
Yeah. I can't remember what it's called.
It's called the dojo. The Zendo. It's called the Zendo.
Zendo. What's it called at Boom? It was called something funny.
Oh yeah.
It's held by maps. It's quite dazzling.
Yeah.
I was once at Burning Man, and I was only.
Dude, you almost died at Burning Man.
Oh, I know.
You did?
Yeah, he told this story before.
I did almost die there. It was quite remarkable. This was the year before. I also felt like I was dying at Burning Man. I only smoked 2 hits of weed, but it was like, because the desert is so harsh, I just got really high, and I was having a very paranoid trip, and I was like, oh gosh, maybe I should go to that Zendo place to get some support. But then I was like, no, those people are in on it. Those people want to.
Oh no.
So I was tripping so hard I couldn't even go to the tripping relief.
Oh, that's a dark place.
Oh, do a full episode on just like the times when smoking drugs broke reality or something like that. You know, sometimes
that would be good,
dude. Like
I have a good handful of those.
Yeah, I remember one time when I was younger and I was at like a party and I broke time or something like that. Like I like smoked a bong. This was like when I was like 17, and I think there was like it was just like a lot of like THC crystal in it or something, like probably way more than I had ever been used to. And it was just like this weird sensation where I suddenly just kind of like became hyper aware of time, and it felt like everything, I felt like I was like forgetting and remembering everything like every 10 seconds or something like that. Maybe some people can relate to that. And then I don't know why this episode is just like a smorgasbord of stories.
Let's lean into it.
We'll just keep going until we're tired.
We're being non-linear. We're being feminine.
Right.
We're just letting it flow. We're just
what's about, man. Honestly, this is like suddenly like now everyone's tuning in and everything like that. Okay, no, I'll
magnetic.
Chaos is magnetic. Oh no, it's like people are like, oh, like I'm here for the trippy stories, you know. But I was just gonna say, like, Lacey told me this story once where she was on like a high dose of like LSD allegedly. Allegedly, we always have to say from now on, if we're talking about drugs, everyone just put allegedly after every sentence and we're good. Allegedly. So, but she was like literally talking about how she was like walking through a field with a friend and literally like time like fucking stopped, like down to fucking like super slow-mo, and she was like fully conscious, and she was just like, and like the person next to her was like walking through like the field, but then like created like a multiple like frames of trails behind them and stuff like that. But it was like straight up, she was like, holy shit, like fucking like is this gonna stay like this? And it was just like time suddenly just got stretched out like 1,000 times slower, and then eventually it kind of like snapped back. But she was like fully conscious of the fact that like in that moment, you know, because it's kind of like this thing, it's just like, dude, like what is time, right? Like is time this consistent thing, or is time just again something that's kind of like tweaked based on our perception of it? I mean, this is a whole discussion in itself where it's like, I don't even think time is, you know, people say time is a man-made structure or concept. Dude, I think time is like an ocean. I think we exist inside of time, and then again, depending on like the tuning of our frequency of our consciousness, we perceive it differently. So it's like our time as a human right now on our base level perceives at this equivalent rate that we're all kind of like on board with. But then, you look at like an insect, and then like their perception of time is probably way different. Like imagine for flies, they actually, like, from their perspective, like it's way slower. To us, it's like me, 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 me. To them, it's just like, woo. And hence why they can actually, like, for them, it's just like they see the hand coming down to swat them, and they're just like, fuck you. And it's like, every time it's just like, how do they dodge it, right? And then the other thing I was going to say, and then like imagine like the perception of time from a tree. Like imagine a tree is just like looking out, and then it, like, from their perspective, things are actually moving fast. So they see like all these people just kind of like coming and going and building a house, and a house comes down, and then like a castle goes up, and it's just like cars moving and stuff. And it's just like, zoom, zoom, zoom. And we like look like bugs to them or something. Again, this is obviously getting on board with the idea that trees see things and stuff like that, which is like a whole thing. It's like on a higher dimensional level, they can actually see things. That was something I realized one day.
Yeah.
So
on mushrooms, allegedly.
We've got a question from the audience.
Do we have a question from the audience? Yes. Jenna's in the audience. Hey, Jenna. And welcome everyone else.
Do you think smoking drugs is a requirement for reaching higher consciousness? And I would say it's definitely not required. There's other methods such as boofing, where you can ingest a drug through your butt chakra and other raiders.
Walk away for a second.
But in all sincerity, I don't think I have met some very conscious people who have never done psychedelics, and that really does blow my mind, because they were quite pivotal for me in reaching higher consciousness, but it's definitely not required for everyone. We've all got our unique journeys. What do you think, Kristen?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's essential. Though I am grateful that recently, I got deeper into my spiritual journey, like much far after I'd allegedly taken psychedelics for the first time. And I probably haven't married the two as much as a lot of people have. So I've just kind of, the deeper I've been getting the last couple of years, the more sober I've kind of become. And I've been in that space meeting other people that are also deep into their spiritual experiences and transcendence and that kind of stuff. And they didn't even have that past of taking substances. So, and then I have that mischievous curiosity of like, I wonder what would happen if they did now, like, because of doing it in the order that I allegedly did. It's like, I'm curious how it would go the other way, to have had these like organic transcendent experiences and then to have psychedelics and compare the two from the opposite. And I'm really interested about that. But essentially it's meant like the people that I have, one of them has done it in that direction, and just the way that they go about taking them is heaps more conscious, because they've already like cultivated such a conscious relationship with life and spirituality that when they have them, it's not like, oh, all my friends are doing it and I'm 19, so I'm going to do it. Like it's like, they're like, what do I want from this? How am I going to set up the space? All the whole delivery and experience is different for them. But yeah, it's definitely not essential. But they're enhancing portals that we already have in our souls anyway.
Yeah, I think again, just kind of adding a response to this, I guess we'll just put a little bit more time on the clock. If anybody in the chat, again, now that we got like 1,000 people tuned in, again, if you guys finally, just like as we're about to finish the show, if you guys have questions for us as conscious media creators, feel free. We'll try to give both like serious and half-ass answers, whatever the case may be. But we're just kind of going with the flow here. But yeah, just to kind of like answer back on that, like honestly, I will say that, for me, like it's kind of one of those things where it's like essential or necessary. I don't even know if it's the word that we need, because it's one of those things where it's like whatever's meant for you will be for you, sort of thing. So it's just like, hey, if experiencing psychedelics and mushrooms at an earlier stage is a part of your journey, then it will be a part of your journey. If it's not, it's not. I think it's one of those things where it's just kind of like not feeling like you need to chase it, but allowing it to kind of like come to you if it's meant to be. And for me, like, I can honestly say that like a big part of my inspiration for the work that I did actually came from a DMT experience when I was young, when I was like 21. And this was
Allegedly.
Allegedly, and this was like way, like way, thank you. What? But yeah, like straight up that and I've talked about this on podcasts before, but some people haven't heard it. But for me, it even still to this day, it was a very like personal, private experience. I talk about it now and then. I don't talk about it too often, but with it gave me, from my own direct experience, this degree of knowing that absolutely there was more to this reality than meets the eye. Like, no one could tell me otherwise at that point. I had seen it, I had experienced it, it was in front of me. It was still a mystery, I didn't fully understand it, but it was there. Whatever the fuck it was, like, it was there, and I was a part of it. And a big part of like that experience was literally like understanding viscerally that we are in like this ocean of energy, and this ocean of energy is literally created as like this like the part of the way how I described it, it was like infinite unfolding sacred geometry of light, like this golden infinite sacred geometry of light. And it was like it was me, it was everything. I was a part of it, and I was just like, holy shit, like this is. And the biggest thing for me was like, it felt so familiar. I was just like, oh, this isn't new, I've seen this before, like not in this lifetime, but like in my dreams and other stuff. And I knew it within my heart that it was something incredibly important. And then, from then, like, I literally came back from that experience, and I was like, I want to create paradigm shift. I want to create some sort of project where, like, my role won't be to, stand on a mountain and tell people all about my experience, but my role will be able to, create circles at the base of the mountain to allow people to be able to, find their way towards their own experiences so that they can experience these revelations and these degrees of awareness for themselves, whether they're like mine or whatever they look like, because there's a million different ways back to that. But yeah, we could totally talk about, I mean, we've talked about psychedelics on other podcasts before. We can just spend a couple more minutes on it here. And then if there are any other questions, feel free to let us know. We do have some questions kind of queued up for ourselves as well that we can do some rapid fire on. But yeah, go ahead. You guys just riff off this.
One thing I'm really fascinated by is how, first of all, Brendon, I had the exact same experience when I first allegedly experienced what I call it. I call it the dimethyl trampoline.
Jump out of the ocean.
Another dimension, yeah.
So I had the same exact feeling. I was like, whoa, I know this place. It felt so familiar. It almost felt like I was like closer to myself than I normally am. And that is what I find so fascinating, is that a lot of times these quote unquote altered states actually make us feel like this is how I should be all the time, or this is how I feel more like myself, or I feel this feels more real to me than normal. And I'm really fascinated by that, because I mean, that's how I feel. Just for those of you just tuning in, I just did a 3-day fast and cleanse, and on the third day I felt like, wow, I feel so clear. This is how I want to feel all the time. So like my thing now is like, Spirit, God, please guide me to do whatever I need to do, eat whatever diet I need to eat, however disciplined I might have to be, so that I can maintain this degree of clarity. But I find it fascinating how a lot of people say, like, on psychedelics, it's like you wake up to this new higher level, which feels more real. It feels like, oh, like when I first did mushrooms, I was like snapping out of these like autopilot patterns, and I was able to have more authentic connections with people, because it was almost like when I was unconscious, I was just reading off a script. I was like, oh, mimicking TV or whatever the thing was. But as you become more conscious, it's like you're actually able to create authentic new thoughts and communicate them. Mm-hmm. So what I'm fascinated with is how these experiences might seem more real, but then you go back to normal life, and a lot of people, it changes their whole trajectory of their life, because they're like, okay, if that's the greater truth or the greater reality, then I'm going to like base my life on that rather than what my parents are telling me to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a shadow side to that where people almost like devalue their sober state or their normal state, and they're like obsessed with chasing peak experiences or whatever. So I think there can definitely be a shadow to that. And also I think that there can be like delusion and mental illness plugged into you might have an ayahuasca experience that says like sell everything you own and move to the peak of Tibet, like a mountain in Tibet. And if your framework is that the truth from ayahuasca is better than the truth of your sober mind, then you're probably going to do that. And I know people who've like in hindsight made some pretty big mistakes because they had some trip that told them to do a certain thing and they followed that advice. So I think it's just like a balance of questioning like what is the most real and what is like practical. And yeah, that's generally what I like saying.
Yeah, I think it's I definitely felt that, like when you said that, you instead of doing what your parents have modeled, like it can open your mind a bit. Like the first alleged substance I did was LSD, and I hadn't even had weed or anything before. And like the person that gave it to me didn't give me a very good rundown of what was going to be in store for me. And I basically just thought it would be a mood enhancer, is what they'd kind of described. And then I allegedly had a full trip. But I remember just like, without going into the trip, because you can get lost in those kind of conversations, I remember the day after being like so hyper aware of like my peripheral vision. Like it was like before I'd just see things from here, and then I could just see everything before me, and I was the only thing I could explain to him was that it was like, you've turned me into a real hippie now. But it was just because felt like I could see, and that I was really sensitive to beauty. Like my sensitivity to beauty was like heaps boosted, and I could tell it wasn't going to go away. It was just like, oh, I'm actually looking properly. I'm not just in my head like looking at where my feet is going one in front of the other. It's like the world is here, and I could feel it, and it was really, it was transformational. And he wasn't necessarily a heaps conscious psychedelics user or anything, so it was very much an experience I was having, and it wasn't shit, like he wasn't relating on that level of conversation with me. So I do think it has the possibility of being so just medicinal for just people opening their minds. Of course, that's what they basically do. But I, like, part of the reason why I've gone more, like, the more spiritual I've become, the more sober I've been, is because I have craved that integration of that openness that happens into sober life. And it seems like that's not always a priority for people. It's like that openness only exists in an inebriated state, and whether that be psychedelics or other stimulants and stuff like that, or even alcohol, because alcohol is huge in Australia. It's just like people don't open up until they've had blah blah blah, and it's like I'm open all the time, and like even though I can be in those places and interact with people that are in that state and have open conversations, they're generally not as open to people who aren't also inebriated. So it's like I'm wanting that they need to maybe have a couple of drinks to get comfortable enough to talk. But if they find out that I'm not drinking, then they're probably just going to gravitate towards someone who is in a similar state, rather than like, because there's that self-consciousness of maybe embarrassing yourself if you say something too open-hearted when you're in an open state to someone who's sober and is going to remember it. So like this community is actually came at the perfect time, where I was pretty much at my wit's end with trying to like navigate that, like, because lockdown was still happening and it was really hard to organize to see people. But I just think it's really it just been part of my journey to still be so open to those things, but really cultivate integrated sober openness and find people that are also doing that, so that we can laugh about spirituality, but it's not something you just like it's not just in the container of inebriation that goes on. So yeah, I just really just wanted to say that, because that's like a huge reason why I'm like being so devoted to coming to these, because it gave me something I was really craving and didn't feel like I had the agency to create outside of an online space just yet. But since being here, my comfort in being able to instigate the conversations I want to have has boosted heaps. And that's part of being here, but also doing content creation. The more you create content aligned with your values and you express your actual voice, like what you actually want to say online, you start to embody it. And in other situations, it's not like as high pressure for someone to validate you immediately, because you're already about that stuff. And so now I feel like it's not unusual to be in sober, integrated openness with people about spirituality, even talking about psychedelics or just talking about heart stuff. So now when I'm in the real world, it's like it's starting to be cohesive over there. It's like, fine, there's a cohesion happening because my confidence is sound with it now.
That's really beautiful to hear, Kristen. And thank you again just for sharing, because that's like, again, just kind of like shows the power of, like having these spaces to begin with, and they're going to nurture different people in different ways. And I'm so glad that, again, this is kind of like come to you at a time where you've really been able to turn it into something that's been very, again, like nurturing for the content that you've continued. Again, kind of going back to what we were talking about with the torch, it's just like, here I am creating something, and then it's inspired you, and then you're going to create something, and that's going to inspire someone else, and then they're going to create something, and it just continues to kind of fractal out that way. So no, this is really cool. Again, just kind of wrapping up on the psychedelics topic.
Yeah,
and then
I gotta get going.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm ready to wrap this up in the next couple minutes. So I mean, even if we just want to do some closing thoughts, Kevin, how much time do you got? Just give me an
7 minutes.
That's what I was going to say. We're going to finish it up like less than 10 minutes. So I was just going to say, going back to the theme of psychedelics, like as conscious media creators, like kind of what I was talking about, like our journey is to lead people back to the heart. Our journey is to lead people back to their own personal connection with the universe, with God. And when you think about psychedelics, like the word like psychedelics, like comes from the word like psyche and delos. So again, it's kind of like the meeting of like, it's like the personal meeting of mind with God, basically. So within that, it's just like we as conscious creators, like we are facilitating the psychedelic experience, not with the medicine that we use in the terms of like the mushrooms and the LSD and the trampolines allegedly, but like basically like this is medicine though. Our content is medicine. There's a very very intentional phrase that I kind of introduced to the community a while back, like media medicine, and what happens when we start thinking about the things that we are creating as medicine, not medicine in kind of like a pharmaceutical, like kind of like hokey pokey sense, but really in the sense of like, like something that nurtures us, something that really kind of like, again, like helps add sustenance to the parts of our soul, so to speak. But yeah, let's because there were a few questions I had. I'll just kind of hit upon these real quick. We don't even have to answer them. Some of the questions that I had are there any challenges as conscious media creators that seem to always be present? How do you approach them? Why do you think there are so many conscious media creators now? What kind of wisdom do you feel most excited to share? And if you could pick one or two pieces of wisdom that you would consider to be most important within your spectrum of messages, what would they be? And what would look like? What would the world look like without conscious media creators? That's a very hypothetical question. Yeah, so I mean, we don't necessarily have to get into all those. We could always save them for another time and stuff like that. But what's on your guys' heart? What do you guys want to share here? We'll just kind of get into like closing messages nonetheless and anything else. So go for it, Bobby.
Well, since you called upon me, Mr. Carlton, I will go first. So I've been working on my spring water and my H2O purification within my own body, cleansing out my liver and my lymphatic system. I bounce on my dimethyl trampoline to cleanse my lymphatic system. But I will say I've been on a very similar journey to my new friend Kristen, who I think is quite awesome. I just want to say that I also have done very few psychedelics in the last 7 years, actually. It's been like 2015 since I really did many psychedelics, except for a micro dose. I had a joke one of my other names. First name could be Mike. Last name could be Rodos. Mike Rodos. How's it going?
Hey, it's Mark Rodos.
It's going good.
Rodos.
So aside from that,
Rodos.
I have been on a journey of integration because, I did 15 ayahuasca ceremonies, and that's a lot of information to integrate. I'm still doing my homework from Mama Ayahuasca from 7 years ago, from 9 years ago. So I think anybody who's had your psychedelic journey, it's like, have you done your homework from the teachings of your last trip, or are you just going back for another lesson? You haven't done your homework since the last lesson, baby. You gotta drink some H2O and get your ass together, baby. So that's all I got to say, Mr. Cullerton. Was that a good answer? Did you? Are you gonna tell my mama I'm a good? Are you gonna tell my mama I'm a good student?
You're a wonderful student, Bobby. I'm proud of you.
I'll give you a sticker.
Well hydrated. So.
Oh yeah, Miss Seed over here is a real teacher.
She is, yeah.
I should have asked her for a gold star.
Yep.
That's funny. Thank you, Bobby.
You are so great.
Yeah. It's real truth there too.
Just to answer Brendon's other question, I think I'm receiving a download from the Great Spirit that I'm supposed to be a little more silly in my videos because it makes me happy and it seems to make you happy. So let's just have a happy party and stop taking ourselves too seriously.
I'm having a huge craving to hang out with you at like 4 a.m, where this just kind of takes over and doesn't end when you're in the beta wave brain state, and it's just like he's going and going and going. Oh man.
No, that's nice. No,
Yeah.
everyone just kind of take a moment to just shut up and just kind of feel whatever we're feeling. Yep, that's it. That's it right there.
Okay.
My soul feels very hydrated, so that's some good
Yeah.
right there, Bobby.
Yeah, my joy. I was made to be a receptacle of this kind of comedy. I'm really grateful to have this.
Like you said, you're like that one person in the audience who's laughing at all our jokes. That's exactly
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for tonight.
Very grateful.
I mean, even though it's today for me, but yeah, I'm really grateful tonight. And
Yeah, you'll be smiling for the rest of the day now. So.
I will be.
And you've been in here from the future the whole time.
Mhm.
You're broadcasting from the future.
Yeah.
That's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
Australian accent?
Well,
Yeah, have you got an Australian accent?
this is I've got like a mixture. If it goes in waves between British and Scottish and all of the things, You've got to hang out with Tim Horton more, I haven't thought of Tim Hortons. Haven't thought of Tim Hortons in quite a while because it's been quite a while since I've been to Canada. Anywho, I've got to get going, so
We'll wrap it up. So
yeah,
cool.
let's do it.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you guys again. I know there's always more for us to talk about, but we'll save some for another day. And yeah, Kevin, Kristen, it's been wonderful for those of you who've been tuned in. As wacky as this night is, I hope it's some way. Group hug. I hope it is in some way inspired whoever is tuned into this. Again, just
you guys watching this, even if you're in the future, you're in this group hug. Let's do a real.
Yeah. I'm sending future hugs.
Feel it through all your chakras from clown to butt.
Clown to butt.
Cool. Sweet. Any closing messages, and then we'll wrap it up. Kristen, just gratitude.
Just love you, Brendon. And love you, Kevin, too. Yeah, I like the freeform vibe. Like, it's nice. It's nice to have a small group and just be off mute and just to be like, it's been really nice. But yeah, I mean, I said my closing thoughts, like just that this has been really significant for me, like just giving me, you being like, what is needed? You're picking up on what was needed for me. So thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Sweet. Well, yeah, from here, let's just kind of take whatever the hell just happened and bring that energy forward with us into tomorrow. And maybe, again, all of us will just kind of like be smiling a little bit more and kind of like what we were saying, you know, like let's like wake up tomorrow as if we spent like the night before, like having some big psychedelic revelation, and just kind of like tap into that, where it's just like see the world with like a little bit more of a wider lens, so to speak, because it's always there. Like there's no moment where there is like any less magic and love within this world. It's just a matter of us just kind of like continuing to open ourselves up to it, and really just knowing that it's always there. So again, as conscious creators, I haven't explicitly said this before, but it's like one of the things we do, it's like we are the bridge between worlds, the bridge between higher conscious ideas and mainstream culture. So through our own experience, that is the work we do. And then how do we continue to kind of bring that message out into the world? And we do that by being nothing less than our authentic self. So yeah. All right, well, we'll wrap it up here, guys. Encouraging you guys to go follow Kristen and Kevin. I put the links in the info for this video if you're not already. Kevin at Kevin May 222 on Instagram, and Kristen at Spiral Soul Seed on Instagram as well. And yeah, go ahead and click all the links, join our Discord, follow us on Ibble, check out the Patreon if you're curious to support there. And feel free to send us a direct message anytime. Send us a direct message if you enjoyed tonight's broadcast, and we'd love to be able to connect with you further. So we'll wrap it up at this moment, and thank you guys again. And until next time, keep it shifty, and we will see you guys in the future. And saying farewell. So good night, everyone. Drive home safely. Be sure to hydrate.
Great to meet you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Much love.
All right. Peace.